Corruption, affairs, secrecy, from Nixon's resignation to the Clinton-Lewinsky saga, all of it is scandalous. But the FBI paying Twitter over $3 million to do its dirty work, that takes the cake, folks. It's the latest dump of damning Twitter files, and they reveal that the FBI paid the social media giant millions of taxpayer dollars to ban accounts largely linked to conservative voices, which in turn helped Joe Biden win the election. Forget Monica Lewinsky and her blue dress. This has very well just become the most incriminating scandal to come out of Washington in modern history. In an email from February 10th, 2021, an unidentified Twitter employee told Twitter's then Deputy General Counsel Jim Baker, quote, "I am happy to report we have collected $3,415,323 since November 2019. Now, that email also explains that Twitter's Safety, Content, and Law Enforcement Division had instituted a reimbursement program in exchange for processing requests from the FBI. One of the most powerful agencies in the country was using your hard-earned tax dollars to bribe the big tech oligarchs, and not just Twitter, by the way, into banning accounts of everyday Americans and controlling the flow of information. Now, that biased flow of information, like the complete absence of the Hunter Biden story leading into 2020, for example, undeniably swayed the election. This was a coordinated effort by the FBI to install Joe Biden into office. And if that's not enough for you, think about the nearly $3.5 million used at the expense of the taxpayer to do this. Talk about wasteful spending as Congress unveils a sweeping $1.7 trillion government funding bill today. Now, the government doesn't know the first thing about smart spending. We've seen this before. And let's just think about some of these recent expenditures. $20,000 for drag shows in Ecuador, $25 million for gender studies in Pakistan, $25 million for anti-discrimination and bias training at HHS, $4.5 billion for the federal housing plan takeover. And it gets weirder, of course. $6.9 million to create a smart toilet, $3 million to study whether people will eat insects as a means to combat climate change. I mean, that has Bill Gates written all over it. $3.3 million on an anti-tanning bed social media campaign. And folks, we could just do this all day. You've seen it before. So these Twitter files, though, they're the holy grail, combining one of the greatest political scandals of our time with a prime example of congressional pork spending. What we end up with is a recipe for the downfall of America. Accountability must be top priority come Congress' new session next month. To discuss this, I am joined by former Arkansas governor and former presidential candidate Mike Huckabee. Governor, welcome to the program. Great to see you tonight.
Jen, thank you very much. You know, I've been wondering, why are our federal taxes so high? I think now we know, because the government is wasting it on nonsense. But this is, as you have so accurately said, the biggest scandal of our lifetime. When you have the FBI spending $3.5 million to basically bribe a private social media company to determine the outcome of an election, it's not only scandalous with our tax dollars, but Jen, this is electioneering. This is using taxpayer money to tilt an election one way or the other. And that's not only an in-kind contribution, it's illegal. And the non-reporting of it means somebody ought to go to jail.
Somebody ought to go to jail. And, you know, so grateful for journalists that are bringing this to light right now through Elon Musk. And Matt Taibbi, one of the journalists who dropped one of the initial batches of Twitter files, he said the contact was, quote, constant and pervasive as if it were a subsidiary between the FBI and Twitter. You know, your thoughts on this, that they had to vote an entire team. They had so much of their resources, from money to staff, being devoted to these communications with the FBI that they had to set up this reimbursement going on. I mean, that must have been a lot of communication during that time.
Well, you know, Jen, I'm sure Liz Cheney is going to want to create another commission that she can help chair so we can get to the bottom of this. Congress has been wasting all this time trying to connect Donald Trump to January 6th. They've not been able to do it, but they pretend that they have. They're going to defer all that to the Department of Justice. What they need to be doing is insisting that Merrick Garland, the Attorney General, get a Hoover vacuum cleaner and sweep the whole DOJ and FBI clean. There's something terribly, and I mean incredibly wrong, with federal agencies using the money of the taxpayers so that instead of voting, we just let the FBI determine the outcome of the election. It's unacceptable. I'll tell you, the only thing that'll be worse, if the Republicans take the House and they go in January and they don't do something about this, they don't turn the lights on, they don't hold people accountable, then it's going to be worse than what the FBI did, because it means that the party that should be bringing some balance is going to go AWOL, and they just can't do it. So Republicans, you're on the hook. You've got to show up and do your job. America depends on it.
Kevin McCarthy.